In our last meeting, we had already discussed some of the forms which we used when we are representing buyers. Uh, for example, the CRG, the Consumer Relationship Guide. We also learned about EBRA, Exclusive Buyer Representation Agreement, and FinTracks. We learned about them in last things and in last meeting. So those are the common forms of the forms generally associated with the buyers. And now in our part 2, we will be discussing our other parts, other forms, which we will be using to represent the buyers. So in our part 2, basically, we will be going over forms used specifically with purchase, and CRG, EBRA, and FinTrack, as the slide shows, were detailed, discussed in our last meeting. So let's start with the buyer's offers today. So the buyer forms which we are going to discuss today are offer to purchase, amendments, addendums, notices, and we will also discuss a little bit on the trade record sheet, TRS, which is also a very important document. Like suggested in last meeting as well, it's always a good practice to print these forms ahead of time and go over it by yourself and also with the buyers, so that they are aware of the forms which and when they will be presented to them and which they will have to fill and sign. You can always help them fill those forms, but definitely waiting till the last moment, or to making them understand what that form is. It's a better practice to let them know ahead of time that what an offer to purchase is, what an amendment is, what is a waiver, what is a non-waiver, when are they used, what are the implications, why are they used, kind of things. And if they have any questions, rather than waiting at the real time when you are putting the offer to purchase, rather than spending time at that point in negotiating and working hard for your buyers, if you end up explaining them forms at that time, or if they have questions, that's a very big waste of an opportunity. And I have seen in my experience, most of the time, explaining the offer to purchase and asking the buyers to take one empty one or unfilled one home, giving them that offer to purchase blank with your name, your phone number and stuff already printed on it in the appropriate column, and asking them to use it in their spare time to try to fill it, many times removes a huge issues which might come up later. For example, if you give them a blank offer to purchase and tell them that this is the space where you have to fill the purchase price, and every time they fill in practice and they are putting an offer way low, then you know their mindset. So you can ask them that why do they keep doing this in the beginning, and we'll have time to explain them this is going to probably hurt you more than help you, at this point in time, rather than, at 10 o'clock at night when you're presenting the offer and the offer is low and you are in a multiple offer situation. So these kind of practices are very good practices to keep in your business. Now let's start with the offer to purchase. Like suggested, it's always better to get it printed, and you yourself go over it as well, and then if you have any questions, you have the time to ask us at the brokerage or the managers to help you out with that or explain you that. Or if your buyers comes back, if they have had an opportunity to look at it, if they come back to you and ask you a question, you will still have time to get an educated answer for that, rather than doing a guesswork or making them feel that you are not an educated realtor. You are just there, without any answers. In technical sense, a residential purchase contract, which you see on your screen on the left side, and the one on the right side is for condominiums, for resale condominiums. Not much difference. The essence of the form is exactly same. It's just that the condominium one has a few more clauses, where you can specifically talk about the unit numbers, the plan, condominium plan, unit factors, if there is a parking stall and stuff, which should be made available. This information should be made available by the listing realtor anyhow. So that's the only difference, and it also has a clause in your conditions in the condominium, one extra condition of condominium documents. The rest of the essence of the purchase contract is same. I'm not going to go over line by line of the purchase contract, but I will definitely discuss with you all the important clauses there. Basically, in our experiences, people who have been realtors or for long or new or have presented a purchase contract will notice that ultimately, in 99% of the cases, it boils down to the purchase price. So offer price, which we call the purchase price clause 2.1, the property you are buying, the details of the property, its municipal address and legal descriptions from the land title will be in the section 1. The most important thing here will come in section 2, which is the offer and the completion date or the possession date. Then the general terms which follow are the ones which you should have already discussed with them if you have done your job properly in CRG and in EBRA. Plus, it shows a few lines where it will show the responsibilities of a seller as well, what you should expect from a seller in this. Like any other contract, for new agents especially, keep in mind every contract has to have a contract number. If you download the forms from web forms, and a number is automatically assigned by web forms, and all your pages of that contract form will have the same number. Usually it's a very cumbersome number. You are allowed to use any number you want as long as it's the same contract number on all of them. Some realtors make it they like putting the property address on it or the date as a contract number. For example, April APRIL 152019. Something which you can remember easily, all those kind of things, so that whenever you will send any changes to this contract as amendment or waivers and all those kind of things, they will all point to this contract number. And some of those documents, even their contract numbers would be, you can put the same contract numbers. Going to the next pages here, the one thing here, please don't mind, I had to squeeze the pages to show as many as I can on the screen. Most of the time, realtors like to confuse themselves, make it hard on themselves, just by making things complicated. But try to keep things as simple as possible. Even if you're working with a buyer, pulling up a land title is always a good habit. And if you pull up a land title and you see that there is only one person on the title, then you have the opportunity to ask the seller's representative, is there a tower issue, or have they handled a tower issue? And you can get an answer back from them. So clause number 7.1 is not a big deal. If it is, then you just tell them to provide you with that information. A completed tower consent. And if they say there is no issue, then go over to the next one. Possession date, I would suggest, it was on the previous page, but possession date, try to keep it as a weekday. Try not to keep it on a Friday, because most of the time a lawyer or a mortgage person is required to close a deal properly. So when you are putting a possession date, please explain this to your buyer as well. Usually keeping it a couple of days or 2-3 days before letting go of their other property is always advantageous. It should be a weekday. Sometimes lawyers are not available. Sometimes there's mortgage issues and mortgage brokers are not available on the weekend. So those kind of things should be avoided. Of course, if the buyer insists that's what they want, then that's what they want. But if you'll explain them properly what it is, why you are asking not to put it on a weekend or a holiday or Friday, then they will understand that it will lead to a problem. So possession date like that. And now we look at clause number 8, which is conditions. If you look closely there, most common conditions which a buyer might need are already printed in there. All you have to put is fill in the blanks. Financing condition, your buyer should be looking at some sort of a mortgage unless it's an absolutely cash sale. You might not need. Property inspection, where a professional property inspector would be allowed inside the property to inspect it and give their opinion on this property, and then the buyer can make a decision on that. So technically, conditions are the clauses which should have a date and a time on it for these conditions to be removed. Conditions have to be removed to make the purchase contract binding. If the conditions are not removed, then this purchase contract dies, because you are purchasing, or your buyers are purchasing, this property on these conditions. So that's the property of a condition. So you have to put an end date, an expiry date, and a time on it, and make sure everyone understands. Again, I would prefer it not to be a weekend, so that most of the sources are available. Leave enough time for you or your buyers to arrange all these things. For example, if they have to call a few property inspection companies, they should be able to contact and get someone on time there and get a report back on time. So don't put like a day or two for that. Don't come under pressure from sellers. It is for their advantage too, rather than giving it a couple of days and letting this offer die, than to give you enough time. For mortgages, ask the mortgage broker, or the buyer, ask the buyer which mortgage broker are they using and what would they be comfortable with. Having 5 to 6 business days is very normal, but again, you can ask your buyers, and adjust it. There might be a negotiation going back and forth on these condition dates or the conditions themselves. Now, the way buyer has its conditions, if there is anything they want to put additional to any of these conditions which are already printed, you can go ahead and print it. You can go ahead and put those conditions here. For example, someone might say, that I am looking at the property, I like the property, I will put an offer on it, but it is conditional to someone else viewing it as well. My parents have to come down, or there is another person who is going to make a decision. It's only me who have looked at it, my spouse hasn't. So you can put it down as a condition, so that the offer has been saved for you, that property has been saved for you on this condition, and when the person comes down and they like it, you remove that condition. Otherwise, if they don't like it, you are still, the buyer is not binding. In my experience, this should never reach that point. You should always work with all your buyers. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. If one buyer has to come later and look at it, or if some relatives have to come and give their opinion, all these kind of things should be avoided. Again, you can avoid them very easily by chatting with your client buyer upfront, giving them blank offer to purchase, going over the offer to purchase with them and asking them if they have any question. Similarly, if a seller wants to put a condition, they can put it in 8.3. And then we go to terms. Now, terms are similar in essence to conditions, but they do not have to be removed. They do not have an end time. For example, you can put a term of a property inspection. So you don't have to put viewing the property or doing a property inspection before possession, not the actual property inspection like the professional inspector did. This is something like a walkthrough. So those kind of things can be put into the terms. You can write it there that this offer has an additional term in 9.2. The walkthrough to be done 1 day before the possession day. And this is for making sure that your buyers can see the property if the stuff has been removed. Try not to put yourself in a situation where you put a kind of a term which is going to be hard to satisfy later on. So those kind of things. Otherwise, you will be asking for trouble, or I mean, look for buyers' safety here. If this term is really, really necessary for the buyer, then put it down. Otherwise, try to solve the small little details, the small little things, small little repairs, and all those kind of things in the purchase price. Try to negotiate on the purchase price rather than putting small little details and other things in terms or making more and more conditions. It is a little disadvantageous to seller as well as buyers, because more conditions and more terms is not very favorable to anyone. There are a lot of things which can be removed just by talking, communicating to each other, saying, okay, this is what the home inspector found, these were the problems. Please just adjust it in the purchase price, and the buyer will take care of it themselves. You know, rather than making a big list and putting it under terms that the seller will get all these repaired, otherwise we will hold back money and the money will be released to the buyer. Of course, if there is an issue which needs to be dealt with by the seller only, and the buyer does not want to get involved in it, for example, a roof change or something like that, then you put it properly. Otherwise, don't make a habit of putting all small little things just to impress the buyers. Whenever you put an offer, most of the other things on this clause 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 are very, very self-explanatory. Your seller's brokerage, buyer's brokerage, representative, and all those information will go here. Please try to put as much information as you can, because you will need this, and we will need this also later on for proper communications. Clause 15 and 16 pretty much makes everyone aware that this offer, before anyone accepts it or rejects it or whatever it is, everyone has their own rights for certain things. They can go and get a legal advice, you know, and all those kind of things can be there. Every contract has to have an expiry date. So number 17 is an expiry date for the whole contract as a whole. Basically, what this means is that if this offer gets accepted, first of all, this offer is only open to view and accept or reject up till that time, date and time. So that would be number 17. Technically, a good thing about here is that if you give a time frame, people will try to be under pressure. They will be forced to make a decision kind of thing. Otherwise, they know that this is going to expire. You know, it also removes the need to withdraw the offer. If offer is complicated, it's going back and forth a lot many times, and your buyer doesn't feel to continue, then if that expiry date has gone, then the offer is expired. The only disadvantage most of the time we feel is if you haven't given enough open time, offer open till, then probably seller will not have enough time. They might come back at you and say either increase the time or we are done. So counters can be accepted, completely rejected, or there could be a negotiation. These are the most three choices, most common choices you have. So if they have accepted the offer the way it is, you have written, you know, offer is good price, you know, and the conditions are not very hard. They are normal conditions, no terms. You have everything in place. You have given them the deposit at proper time. Then the chances are 18, they will accept the offer and continue with it, or they might turn around and reject the offer and give it back to you again in the 18 further down, or they might not sign it, or they will sign it and initial all the pages at the bottom. Your buyer has to initial as well, and make sure the contract number on top is also on all the pages. So either they will cut anything in the contract which they don't like or which they want to negotiate and send it back to you with their initials on those edited sections, the cut, wherever they have made a change. And your buyer will have the right to accept them again or reject them, or again, you know, counter back. So it can go back and forth, but every change you make on the offer anywhere, whether it's price, conditions, what is included, deposits, every party has to sign that initial. Only then it will be considered valid. And now there might be situations where it's multiple offers, you know, and in multiple offer situation, basically it's that the property has more than one offer to purchase on that property. And you might find it, especially in good economic times, there are multiple offers coming on it. You will have to be very careful with it. Rika has looked into a few things and said, you know what, let's handle the multiple offer situation where we look at both buyers and sellers and see no one is taking an undue advantage of anyone. Seller has the right to not to disclose you through their realtor whether there is a multiple offer situation or not. They do have the right, but that should have been given in writing to the other realtor. So try to take a guess, like whenever you are putting an offer, always ask these questions to the other realtor. Has there been any other offer on this property, or is there currently an offer on this property? And then listen to the answer. If the realtor says no, there is no interest, there is no other offer, then there is no other offer. If the realtor turns around and says, you know what, I'm not at the liberty to tell you, then you can ask why. And if he says, I have written instructions from the seller saying not to disclose it, then you can very well guess that there is something going on, and there might be. So prepare your offers properly. Always communicate this information to your buyer right away. Even if they tell you there is a multiple offer situation, right away tell that there is a multiple offer situation to your buyers. Advise them on the seller's options, whatever you have asked them and the answers they have given. Try to personally attend the offer presentations if it is possible. If it is not, I mean, if they are wanting you to just send it by emails or by faxes only, then you don't have much choice. Advise your buyers of their options, right? Including that right at this point in time, they can increase the price, maybe make the possession date more lucrative, maybe make a deposit bigger. Those kind of options are there, or they can leave the offer the way it is. Take a chance whether the seller will accept it or not. There is a good chance maybe your buyer had already put a very solid good offer, so they can do that as well, or they can withdraw the offer. They have the chance. Some buyers might turn around and say, I never want to get into a multiple offer situation. So if it is, please advise the other person that our offer is null and void. Just withdraw the offer in writing. You can fax the last page saying we are not going through it. Send an email. Have something in writing telling the other person that yes, we are withdrawing this offer, so that just in case if they accept it as it is and send it back to you, you are not in a binding here. You can reconsider the condition dates, like I said, or remove some conditions or make it better. So those are the kind of things you can do in a multiple offer situation. That's pretty much what you will do in an offer to purchase. Now, the stuff, if you want anything changed on your offer to purchase after the fact, for example, the offer has been accepted, and now you want to do some changes. You want to increase change the expiry date of the condition or the possession date and stuff like that. You want to add some other clause into it. So you will use amendment or addendum. Amendments are for changes most of the time. Addendums are for adding things to the contract. So anything you wanted added, you will put it here that you forgot to put, that I need to get the carpet shampooed and stuff like that. So that can be added as an addendum. Again, the contract number on top should be same as the purchase contract number, and every party should sign it, both the buyers. So you might present it from the buyer side, or a seller might present it to you from the seller side. Both parties have to accept it for it to become valid and part of the contract. And anytime you had conditions and you want to remove the conditions, you have to use the waiver. If you do not want to use, do not want to remove the conditions, then you have to use the non-waiver. Both these forms are available on the web forms. They are both under notice. You have to be careful. Sometimes it does happen, a mistake, that you wanted to send a waiver, but accidentally you sent a non-waiver. So you are putting your buyer in a jeopardy here, that someone else's offer might get accepted, the seller's thinking that you are not waiving the condition. So read on top in the red whether it's a waiver or a non-waiver, and you remove the conditions from here. All you can do is write the clause number 8.1a, for example, for financing, or B for property inspection. Try to use one waiver for all the conditions. Try to put condition dates similar to each other. So waiver for removing the conditions. Once you remove the condition, the offer becomes firm. If you do not remove the condition, either you can let it expire beyond the condition date, or a good business practice is to send a non-waiver so that it is absolutely clear to everyone what is going on. Trade record sheet is another one of the forms. I don't think it's an internal form for us brokerage. It is a form which is required for conveyancing by the sellers, lawyers, the buyers, lawyers, and RECA as well. So these forms can be found on the websites, on the web form as well, but this one has been prepared internally by us. Please try to fill the whole information on it. If you are representing a buyer, you can wait for this form after the removal of conditions once it has become firm, once you have the information. But don't call us to hurry up on the lawyers conveyancing and other things without sending us this form, because we cannot work on anything if we do not have this form. And please make sure where it says phone number, fax number, email address, whatever it is, for whether the seller's information is needed or the buyer's information is needed, please fill that completely. It is very, very essential. How to calculate commissions is very easy. You know the purchase price, sale price from the top, MLS number, property address, possession date. So it's like a snapshot of your whole transaction. So if you know the sale price, it's 3.5, 1.5, listing site commission or selling site commission. If you're representing the buyer, you won't have to worry about listing site commission. You will do the selling site commission, calculate it. If they are offering you a lump sum, for example, builders and stuff, if it says dollar value 5,000 plus GST, what is the total? Very easy to calculate. If you have any questions, you can call us. If you are giving a referral to someone, the lines at the bottoms, you can use that. We would need the referring person's full name, their address, their contact number, definitely, for us to make a check for them. And we will make it. We will take that money out from your commission so you don't get dinged with your income tax on that. So that is what a trade record sheet is. Those are the forms which we use with the buyers. So hopefully you would have understood this for today, and then we can continue that. I have recorded this video, so I will be sending you this video a little later, and hopefully we had a good meeting here. Talk to you for the next meeting. See you. Take care.